Friends, in this video we will show you how a dog saved the life of his elderly owner. The son, blinded by greed for wealth, tried to push his father into the cliff. But he forgot about his father's loyal dog. The town of Blackwood never expected evil to wear such a charming smile. On a quiet afternoon, with the wind sweeping through the valley, a wealthy young man in a crisp designer suit pushed his frail father's wheelchair slowly along the rocky trail. The old man's hair was silver, his shoulders stooped, and his thin sweater barely kept out the chill. To anyone watching from a distance, it looked like a loving son taking his father for fresh air. But the truth was darker, far darker. As they reached the edge of Blackwood Cliff, the roar of the river below swallowed the silence. The drop was sheer, merciless, the kind of fall no one could survive. The young man leaned close, his lips curling into a smile that carried no warmth. He whispered words only his father could hear, poison in every syllable. The old man's eyes widened, confusion mixing with terror, and before he could cry out, his son shoved. The wheelchair jolted forward, metal scraping rock, wheels spinning wildly as it sped toward the abyss. A strangled scream tore from the old man's throat, vanishing into the wind. For a heartbeat, it seemed final, an end written in cruelty, no witnesses. No proof, no justice, but the son had overlooked one thing. From higher up the ridge, a German shepherd named Rex had been watching. Loyal, sharp-eyed, and ever alert, Rex was no ordinary dog. He had followed the pair, sensing something wrong in the son's steps, in the coldness of his gaze. Now, as the wheelchair vanished over the cliff's edge, Rex's body stiffened. His ears pinned back, his muscles coiled. And with a primal snarl, he lunged into motion, a blur of fur and fury racing down the slope like a storm unleashed. The young man turned, already pulling out his phone as if nothing had happened, as if he could erase the moment with a calm facade. But when he saw Rex thundering toward him, rage in every stride, his smirk faltered. The thunder of paws shook the dirt loose from the trail as Rex hurled himself forward, every muscle burning with purpose. The young man barely had time to curse before 100 pounds of fury slammed into his chest. He hit the ground hard, the phone flying from his hand, skidding across the stones. Dust exploded around them as Rex planted his massive paws squarely against his chest, pinning him down. The dog's teeth gleamed in the sunlight, bared just inches from the man's throat. The son froze, gasping, arms trembling as he tried to push Rex away, but the shepherd didn't budge. His growl rumbled, deep, primal, a warning older than language itself. The man's arrogance drained in an instant, replaced with raw fear. "Get off me!" he shouted, his voice cracking, but the shepherd only leaned harder, pressing him into the earth, his hot breath washing across the young man's face. And then Rex spun. Something more urgent than vengeance called him. He tore away from the struggling man, bolting toward the cliff's edge. His claws scraped rock, his chest heaved, his eyes locked down into the abyss. And what he saw made his bark rip through the valley, echoing like a siren. The wheelchair had not fallen all the way. Against all odds, the old man had been saved by chance or by fate. The metal frame had snagged onto a dead tree wedged into the cliffside, its brittle branches groaning under the weight. The old man dangled above the raging river, his frail hands clutching desperately at the twisted wood. His voice was lost beneath the roar of the current, but his eyes, wide, terrified, pleading, spoke louder than any cry. Rex barked again, louder, frantic, his tail stiff, his body trembling with urgency. The sound carried for miles, cutting through the valley's silence like a blade. On a distant ridge, two hikers froze mid-step. They looked across, squinting against the sunlight, and their blood ran cold when they saw what was happening. The wheelchair, the helpless old man. The sound of sirens tore through the valley minutes later, echoing off the canyon walls. The hikers had done their part, but it was Rex who had bought the old man those precious minutes, refusing to let the scene fade into silence. He stood at the cliff's edge, ears pinned back, barking and barking until his throat burned, until every muscle quivered with exhaustion. His eyes never left the frail figure clinging to the twisted tree, fighting against gravity, against fate itself. The rescue team arrived, fast ropes coiled, helmets strapped, radios crackling. They ran toward the edge, boots pounding against the dirt. One looked down and their faces hardened. "We've got a live one," shouted the lead rescuer. In seconds, ropes were anchored to the boulders, carabiners snapped shut, and two climbers lowered themselves down the jagged cliff face. Above them, Rex paced back and forth, whining now between sharp barks, his body trembling like he could barely contain himself. The young man, the son who had shoved his own father, lay a few feet back, still on the ground, dirt smeared across his designer suit. His face twisted with fear and rage, but no one was looking at him anymore. All eyes were on the old man dangling above death. The first rescuer reached the wheelchair, one hand gripping the rope, the other holding out to the trembling elder. "Hang on, sir. We've got you." But the old man's fingers were slipping, his strength draining by the second. Rex barked louder, his cry carrying desperation, as if he could will the man to hold on just a little longer. The second rescuer clipped a harness around the old man's chest, securing him with fast, practiced hands. "We've got him." "Stable," he called up. The wheelchair groaned, metal bending under the strain, but finally the rope took the weight. Slowly, carefully, they began pulling him up, inch by inch. The old man's face pale, streaked with tears and sweat, and Rex stayed rooted to the cliff's edge, eyes locked, refusing. The air was thick with tension as the police officers surrounded the scene. The young man, still on the ground, struggled to compose himself, but the dirt-streaked suit and fear in his eyes betrayed every lie he had tried to hide. The old man, wrapped in a blanket, sat shivering but alive, his hands gripping Rex's thick fur tightly. The German shepherd's eyes never left the culprit. Each movement of the young man made him growl low, a warning that justice was imminent. Detective Harris knelt beside the old man, taking notes, asking him questions. "Sir, can you tell us exactly what happened?" The elder's voice trembled, but he managed to recount the terrifying moments on the cliff. Every word, every detail, painted a horrifying picture. The push, the wheelchair, the cliff, and Rex's every heroic bark and charge. Now, a testament to what had saved his life. The police officers quickly secured the area and gathered evidence. Photos of the wheelchair snagged on the dead tree, the scratch marks on the rocks, and Rex's paw prints lined the ground like proof of the struggle. The young man tried to protest, stammering, claiming he didn't mean it, but no one believed him. The shepherd's menacing stance spoke louder than any testimony. News crews had arrived, alerted by the hikers capturing the heroic rescue on camera. Slowly, the story spread through the town how a frail old man had almost perished, only to be saved by his loyal German shepherd and the quick response of courageous rescuers. And the young man? Handcuffed, led away, his arrogance replaced by fear. As the weight of his actions began to sink in, Rex remained by the old man's side. Panting but calm now, tail wagging lightly. Every person at the scene instinctively knew this was no ordinary dog. He wasn't just a pet, he was a guardian, a hero in fur. And in the old man's eyes, there was gratitude beyond words. He whispered softly, "Good boy, Rex, you saved me." The detectives nodded to each other. They had all. The town of Blackwood slowly returned to its usual quiet rhythm, but the story of that day lingered in every corner, whispered in cafes, playgrounds, and grocery stores. The frail old man had been rescued, his life saved against impossible odds, and the young man who had tried to commit the ultimate betrayal now faced the consequences of his actions. He would spend years answering for what he almost ended, but Rex the German shepherd needed no recognition. His eyes, alert and intelligent, reflected the calm after the storm, the satisfaction of duty fulfilled. Children in the neighborhood would point excitedly whenever Rex walked by, marveling at his size, his power, and the bravery he displayed. But for those who truly knew, he was more than just a hero to the old man. He was a reminder of loyalty, courage, and the unspoken bond between human and dog, a bond that could save lives when humans failed to act in time. The old man, now safe, would often sit by the window, stroking Rex's fur, his voice soft, shaking, but filled with gratitude. "You kept me alive, my friend. You never left me." Rex would nuzzle him gently, as if saying, "I'm always here." And in those quiet moments, the world seemed right again, balanced by the presence of Someone or something who truly understood the meaning of protection. For the town's residents, the story became a legend. Not because of wealth or power, but because of bravery in its purest form. The rescuers, the hikers who had acted quickly, and the German shepherd who had never wavered became symbols of hope. People learned that heroism could come from the unlikeliest of places, that courage was measured not by uniforms or titles, but by action when the stakes were highest. And as the sun set behind Blackwood Cliff, casting long shadows over the valley, the old man and Rex walked home together, a quiet testament to the day when a dog had saved a life, reminded a town of the power of loyalty, and proved that sometimes the most